Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we have some spoilers for Campaign 3 of Critical Role up to episode 97 and 98. So if you aren't caught up, I recommend clicking off, getting caught up, and then coming back here to watch this video. Over the last few episodes, the Bell's Hells have been traveling around the ruins of Aor in the hopes to somehow track down, find, and stop Ludinus Deleth. Along the way, they learned of the powers that the creature Dominox may hold, as in being able to make a single individual in a group turn on said group through whatever means. They weren't quite sure at the time. But the first person to figure out exactly what could happen was Chetney when he received this vision.
17.
So
Chetney, you
sure
turn to look at the group,
maybe we go around with this.
and you don't see them in the room.
No.
Oh, fuck.
You see dozens of children. Children that step towards you and reveal the bloody claw marks across their body, their throats, their eyes. One steps up. What have you done? Have you forgotten the terrible things you've done, Chetney? Another child comes in the other corner. You don't even remember. You're the bad wolf. You're the big bad wolf. Another one, you made us toys. You filled us with joy, and we filled your belly, and you told no one. A little girl comes up and grabs your hand. You think you're not a monster now? How many did you kill? How many more will join us still?
What the fuck?
They just all slowly step towards you.
Now, that wasn't the whole clip, but if I showed you the whole clip, we'd still be watching it because it would be 15 minutes long. But I think it does a good enough job in showing what his vision was about. That being a bunch of children who claimed that he killed them in terrible, vicious, gross ways that, could happen to a child if a werewolf would have come across them. And the question that sort of comes to mind was, did this actually happen? Did something like this happen? And Matt fuels this fire even further by claiming that Chetney did go feral during the initial portion time of him sort of becoming a werewolf. So the possibility of this happening is very real. So now we just have to find evidence to support that Chetney did in fact do this, or find evidence that supports that he didn't do it. But how do we do that? We know very little about Chetney's past, other than the fact that, he did used to fuck around a lot when he was super young. At one point in time, he was with Deanna, and then he went to Uthadurn and became a master craftsman with woodworking abilities. So realistically, looking at his past isn't where we're going to find the answer. I think the answer comes from the other visions that Dominox gave other members of the Bell's Hells. That is where I think the answer can come from. Only 3 other members of the Bell's Hells got visions while they were in Aor looking for Dominox and Ludinus. And those 3 were Imogen, Ashton, and Dorian. And all 3 of them saw people from their past, people that we know are from their past. Dorian was first, and he ended up seeing his brother Cyrus with a hook through his chest, who was blaming him for his death. He couldn't let Cyrus do his own thing. He had to be dragged into his brother's problems, and then that is what got him killed. That is what the vision told Dorian, but it is still a face that he recognized, unlike Chetney, who saw 13 nameless children. Dorian saw his brother, someone who he knew, someone who is in his memories, someone who he thinks about. Next is Imogen. Imogen saw her mother inside the storm on Ruidus. This is a fairly common thing that she sees in her head all the time. And we know that she has an inner conflict with her mother. She struggles with the idea of, was it a good idea to leave her up there? Is her mother still on her side, or is she against her still? She doesn't know. She struggles with the idea of what's going on with her mother, and that is why Dominox chose to target that. And lastly, we have Ashton, who saw a vision of FCG post-explosion, who was blaming Ashton for their death, and how FCG was saying that they were waiting for him to do something, and Ashton never did, so they had to blow themselves up. Ashton very, very clearly blames themselves in small part for what happened to FCG. In Ashton's mind, he didn't pound out the idea that sacrifice wasn't the only option, and unfortunately that led to the death of FCG in his mind. He blames himself in part. These are all things that Dominox has chosen to attack. They're insecurities. That is his whole thing. So it's weird that Chetney sees a bunch of people that he doesn't know instead of seeing a vision of his friends all leaving him behind, much like his family did, right? So when talking about these 4 visions, you kind of have to keep in mind that it's clear that Dominox is able to reach within the mind of the person he's sort of messing with to find key figures and key moments to pick out. It's weird that, out of the 4 visions we saw, 3 of them have people directly tied to the campaign who we've seen, people who are directly tied to the characters of the people seeing the visions. And then Chetney weirdly gets one that doesn't do this. He doesn't have any visions of attacking Frida, attacking Orm, or any other member of the party when he went feral in the past. Instead, he sees a bunch of children that we've never seen or heard of before at all. That is odd to me, that of all of the visions, Chetney, being the person who has told us many times about his insecurities, about his family leaving, about losing his party and his friends, about attacking people that he loves and cares about, instead, we get a vision of him attacking children, or not attacking them, but a vision of him having already killed and attacked them, and they were injured and wounded. It is odd to me that we see this instead of something else, much like the others got, which were people that they care about, that we also see that they care about. But during this vision, Chetney did in fact ask himself if he did do this. Was this something that he did? And I think that's an interesting little thing to throw in there. And I think this points to Chetney having some sort of memories being suppressed from his past. This isn't the first time a character that we've seen in Critical Role having memories being suppressed. Matt Mercer, during the Campaign 2 wrap-up, pointed out that Yasha did the same thing. Yasha suppressed the memories of her time as the orphan maker to protect herself from the tragedy that she caused in the past. And it wouldn't be too shocking if Chetney, a character who is very insecure of himself, also did stuff, also very insecure about his past, so is very nervous as to the things that he's done in the past. And I think him having done this pushes him towards the Gorgine, pushes him towards Gurge, pushing him towards wanting to control himself. I think this moment, if it happened, adds so much to Chetney's actions throughout the beginning of the campaign. It adds to him wanting to find people who are strong that he can travel with so he can go and get control over himself. Because if he needs to do something at some point where, he has to activate his werewolf form and he can't control it, now he's got strong people standing with him. It makes sense to me that he would go through all of the lengths that he did to gain control over his powers, even though his powers were already really good to begin with, and it seemed like he had a decent level of control, only occasionally going off the rails when the moon is in the sky. It makes more sense now, because he did in fact, in the past, kill a bunch of children. And I think that is very sinister, and it's a nice little wrinkle that Matt Mercer was able to add here. Not necessarily something that he had to communicate with Travis beforehand, unless this was something communicated, but if it's something that happened during a time where he doesn't remember, anything can happen. A DM has full control in that moment. I think that this is a sick, cool, twisted thing to add to Chetney's character. A very lighthearted character who Matt Mercer has described as the heart of the Bell's Hells now has a very black, dark center. And I think that's very interesting and very cool if this did in fact happen. So what do you think? Do you think that Chetney did this in his past and is in fact a child murderer? Or do you think that it's more likely that this was a sort of twisted image that Dominox just created inside Chetney's head to sow the seeds of doubt and sort of bring up his insecurities in a different way? Because he found those insecurities, but he couldn't find a specific moment to sort of target. Do you think that's more likely? Or do you just like the idea that Chetney is a lot darker than he portrays himself? I personally prefer that. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And I will see you guys on Friday when we finally talk about Sam Riegel's new character. I will see you guys then. Peace.